Hi, my name is Elena Brooks. I'm 25 years old, and what you're about to hear is a real story that changed my life forever. It started with a man I met in the most unexpected way, kind, charming, thoughtful, someone who felt like he understood me. In a way no one else ever had, but the truth. He wasn't just some man I met by chance, he was someone tied to my life in the darkest, most shocking way imaginable. What I uncovered destroyed everything I believed about my family and about love before. We begin. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more real-life emotional stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. This story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. It started on a rainy Tuesday evening in New York City. I was walking back from work, soaked and frustrated with an umbrella that had just flipped inside out from the wind. I ducked into a little coffee shop near 34th Street, one I never noticed before, even though I'd walked that block 100 times. It was quiet, warm, and smelled like cinnamon and fresh espresso, the kind of place that made you breathe slower the moment you stepped in. Ordered a latte and sat by the window watching the rain paint soft streaks down the glass. That's when he walked in, tall, dressed in a tailored gray coat, confident but not flashy. The kind of man who looked like he belonged in a movie scene, not in a half-empty coffee shop on a Tuesday night. He ordered black coffee, glanced around, then nodded toward the empty chair across from me. Mind if I sit? He asked. I hesitated just for a second and then nodded. We sat in silence, at first sipping our drinks. Then he smiled and said, "Rough day?" I laughed, mostly out of surprise. "How could you tell? You look like your umbrella lost a fight." I smiled for the first time that day. We started talking. His name was Nathan. He was calm, composed, asked questions like he actually cared about the answers. He told me he was in the city for work, real estate. Mostly said he traveled often, had just moved back to the East Coast after spending a few years at West. I didn't ask too many questions, maybe because I didn't want to break the spell of the moment. We ended up talking for nearly 2 hours. I told him about my job as a junior designer at a small firm, about how I hated the city in winter but loved it in fall. He listened without looking at his phone. Even once before we left, he asked if he could see me again, and I said yes. I wasn't even thinking about romance at the time. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship, and I promised myself a year of emotional detox, but there was something about Nathan that felt different, say familiar in a way I couldn't explain. We met again that weekend, then again the next week. Dinners turned into late-night walks, coffee turned into long talks about childhood, music, life. And before I knew it, he became a quiet, steady part of my routine, a presence I didn't realize I needed. There was only one strange thing. He never wanted to talk about his past. Whenever I asked about his family, he dodged it. When I pressed, he simply said, "Let's talk about you instead." I thought maybe he had family trauma. I didn't push too hard, but there was a moment, a single moment, that should have been my warning sign. He asked me one night, "Do you live with your parents?" I told him I was raised by my mom, that my dad was never in the picture, that it had always just been me and her. He went quiet, his eyes dropped for a second, then he smiled and said, "Your mom must be a strong woman." I thought it was sweet. I didn't realize it was guilt, because what I didn't know then was that the man I was falling for slowly, unknowingly, was someone my mother had once married in secret, and that secret was about to destroy us both. It had been a little over 2 months since Nathan and I first met. By then he felt like a part of my everyday life. We were official, not in the social media sense, but we were exclusive. I'd stopped dating, stopped wondering about anyone else, because every time Nathan looked at me, it felt like he saw me completely. No judgment, no rush, just presence. But one evening, everything shifted subtly, like a storm that starts with just a gust. It was Sunday. I was at my mom's house helping her clean out some old boxes in the attic. She was in one of her nostalgic moods, playing old jazz, sipping tea, telling stories from the past. She handed me a small box. "This one's full of old papers, I think. Go ahead, toss whatever isn't important." I opened the box and started flipping through old greeting cards, bank statements, a faded photo of her in her 20s, a yellowed newspaper clipping, a couple of envelopes marked personal, and then I saw a marriage certificate, my mother's name on one side, the other name Nathaniel James Carter. I blinked, stared at it again. Nathaniel James Carter, my Nathan, same full name I saw in his booking confirmation once when we went away for a weekend, and he asked me to check his email for hotel details. I froze. I didn't say a word, just slipped the paper into my pocket while my mother hummed along to the music downstairs. My chest was burning, my mind running like wildfire. I got home, shut the door, and pulled it out again. Same name, same signature, and the date 27 years ago. My mom would have been just a few years younger than I am now. I called her, tried to sound casual. "Hey, Mom." Who's Nathaniel? Carter? There was silence on the line, heavy silence, the kind that doesn't come from thinking, but from remembering. Then she said quietly, "Where did you hear that name?" "I just saw it in some of your papers." More silence then. "He was someone I married when I was young, a mistake. I don't like talking about him." I was sweating now. "Was he my dad?" She actually laughed a bitter, hollow laugh. "No, God, no, you don't need to worry about that. He was long gone before you were born. He just disappeared, walked out one day, and never came back." I didn't ask anything else. I hung up, and I sat there feeling like I had just fallen into a trap I didn't even know existed, because if my mom was telling the truth, then the man I was now in love with was her ex-husband, me, mother's ex-husband, and the worst part? I was almost sure he already knew I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart thudding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I kept repeating his name in my head, Nathaniel James Carter, as if saying it enough times would make it feel like someone else. But it wasn't. It was him, my mother's ex-husband, the man I kissed, laughed with, trusted, the man who held me while I cried about how complicated my relationship with my mother had always been. He knew. I was almost certain of it. No one accidentally dates their ex-wife's daughter without realizing it, not when we talked about my family, my mom, where I grew up. He knew her name, he knew I was her daughter, he just never said anything, and now I had to find out the truth. The next morning I texted him, "Dinner tonight? My place?" He responded almost instantly, "Would love to. 7, okay?" I didn't eat all day. I didn't cry either. I was past crying. I wanted answers. At 7:06 p.m. he knocked, smiling, holding a bottle of wine like this was any other date. I let him in, took the bottle without saying a word, and walked straight to the kitchen. He followed. "Everything okay?" I turned around and handed him the marriage certificate. He looked down, didn't speak, just stared at it like the paper might catch fire in his hands. And then he sighed, not shocked, not confused, just caught. I was hoping this wouldn't come up, he finally said. My stomach twisted. "You were hoping? Nathan, what the hell is this? You married my mother?" It was a long time ago, Elena. I was 22. She was 20. We were barely adults. We both made mistakes. You think that's the part that matters, the timeline? I was shaking now. "You looked me in the face, kissed me, told me you cared, and you didn't think I had the right to know this?" "I didn't know you were her daughter at first," he said. "Not until maybe the 3rd or 4th time we met, and by then it was too late. I didn't know how to say it without losing you." My throat burned. "So you said nothing for 2 months. He ran a hand through his hair. "I thought about telling you 100 times, but every time I saw you, I just couldn't. You made me feel like I wasn't a failure, like I wasn't broken." I stepped back. "You think I care about your self-pity? You think your feelings matter more than the truth?" My voice cracked. "Do you know what this is, Nathan? This isn't just messed up, it's cruel. You used me to rewrite your past." "I didn't use you," he said quietly. "I loved you. That broke me, because the worst part of it all? I believed him and I hated that I did. I need you to leave." I said. He didn't fight, just nodded, like a man who knew he had no defense left. As he walked out the door, he turned one last time and said, "I was never trying to hurt you, Elena. I just wanted something real, even if I didn't deserve it." And then he was gone, but what he left behind wasn't silence. It was the truth I could never unknow. I didn't speak to Nathan again after that night. I blocked his number, deleted every photo, erased the voice notes, the texts, the playlists. But no matter how many things I removed from my phone, I couldn't delete the one question circling in my mind like a vulture. Why didn't my mother ever tell me? I couldn't stop wondering, what else had she hidden? What other truths had been boxed away like that old marriage certificate collecting dust in the attic? I called her 2 days later and said I was coming over. No explanation, no pleasantries, just "I'm coming." When I arrived, she was in the kitchen drying dishes. I sat at the counter and watched her. Her face was calm, composed, like she had lived her whole life behind a wall. I never noticed until now. "I didn't wait long. I need to know the truth," I said. "Not the short version. Not the version you tell yourself to sleep at night. I need to know everything about Nathaniel Carter." She froze. The dish slipped slightly from the hum. Her hand then clinked gently on the counter. "I figured you'd ask eventually," she said quietly. "You could have told me the night I asked." "I wasn't ready," she said, "because the truth makes me feel like someone I don't want to be." I leaned forward. "Tell me anyway." She sat down across from me and stared at her hands. "I married Nathan when I was 20. He was charming, older, sweet, in that controlling, subtle way. He made me feel seen, but he was also the first man who made me feel small. Her voice trembled a little. He didn't hit me, he didn't scream, but he lied. Constantly, he disappeared for days, came back with excuses and apologies. And every time I forgave him until one day he didn't come back at all. She swallowed. I never saw him again after that. I found out he left the state. I got the divorce finalized without him even showing up. And he never told me? I whispered. You were a child, what would I have said? Hey honey, here's a story about the man who left me hollow for 2 years? I wanted to protect you from knowing that part of me ever existed. I shook my head. But he came back and I didn't know you let me walk around the city while your ex-husband walked into my life. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know either. Elena. Silence stretched between us. Not angry, not cold, just heavy. Then she said something I'll never forget. I think a part of me always knew Nathan would hurt someone again. I just never imagined it would be you. We didn't hug, we didn't cry together like in some dramatic movie ending. We just sat there, two women who'd been loved by the same man, hurt by the same silence, and broken in different ways by the same mistake. But something shifted in that moment. For the first time, I didn't see my mother as just Mom. I saw her as a woman who had once been lost like me. A woman who had also loved the wrong person, a woman I finally understood after that conversation with my mother. I didn't leave her house right away. We didn't say much more, but I sat in her living room for over an hour just absorbing everything. Pain, the confusion, the eerie parallel of our lives. Two women, two different decades, one man who had quietly ruined both of us in his own way. I went home feeling heavier than I'd felt since this entire story began. But that night something happened that shattered the last wall I'd left between closure and chaos. Nathan showed up. My door, I didn't hear from him for almost a week. No texts, no calls, no fake apologies, and yet there he was on my front step, hair damp from the rain, eyes tired like he hadn't slept since the night I kicked him out. I didn't open the door fully, just cracked enough to look at him. Why are you here? I asked. Because I couldn't stay silent any longer, he said. You deserve to know everything. I already do. No, he said, you know what happened, but you don't know why. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I married your mother when I was 22, he began, and yes, I was selfish, I was immature. I thought love was supposed to be exciting all the time, and when it got hard, I bailed, I hurt her, and then I ran. I said nothing, he continued. But when I met you, Elena, I didn't know, I swear to God. I didn't know you were her daughter, not until the 4th time. We saw each other when you told me your mom's full name, and I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. So you decided to lie. I decided to wait, he said. I didn't know how to tell you that the one man your mother probably told you to avoid all your life was me. I folded my arms. Did you ever love me? He looked at me then, and I hated that I could still see the honesty in his eyes. Yes, he whispered, and that's the worst part. Because I didn't deserve to. A lump rose in my throat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to hit him, then pull him close because my heart hadn't caught up with my mind yet. But then I remembered my mother's voice. I think a part of me always knew Nathan would hurt someone again, that someone had been me, so I said, you don't get to rewrite this story, Nathan. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. He didn't argue, just nodded slowly. I'm sorry, he said, and this time it wasn't charming, it wasn't manipulative, it wasn't poetic, it was real, but real doesn't fix broken. He walked away, and I didn't stop him. It had been 3 weeks since I watched Nathan walk away. No messages. No unexpected knocks on my door, no accidental run-ins in the city that once felt too small, just silence. But that silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt like being stuck in a vacuum where every thought echoed too loudly and every memory weighed too heavily. I wasn't grieving a breakup, I was grieving a version of my life that no longer existed, the version where I was simply a woman falling for a kind, mysterious man. Now I was the daughter of the woman he once married, yet the woman he abandoned. No matter how many ways I tried to untangle that, it always ended in the same place. He lied and I loved him anyway. I thought that would be the end of it, but then my mother called. Elena, there's something you need to hear, she said. In person, I didn't want to go. I didn't want more secrets, more buried truths, but curiosity is its own kind of pain. When I got to her place, she was sitting on the porch holding an envelope. She handed it to me. He left this, she said. For you, delivered it to my office, not my home. He didn't want to make things worse. My heart dropped. I opened the envelope and pulled out a letter written in the neat, clean handwriting I had once found comforting. Elena, you're reading this. It means I did the right thing by walking away and staying away. I Thus spent most of my life ruining things with your mother. I was young and selfish and afraid of love that asked for commitment with you. I was older but still a coward. I should have told you the truth the moment I knew. But I didn't because I wanted to keep you even when I didn't deserve to. There's no excuse. For what I've done, I won't ask for forgiveness. I won't come back. I just wanted you to know one thing. You changed me. You showed me what real love looked like. And I hope someday someone gives you the kind of love I never could. Nathan, I read it 3 times, not because I wanted to forgive him, not because I wanted him back, but because for the first time I saw him not as the man who broke me, but as the broken man who didn't know how to love right in the first place. I looked at my mother. I'm sorry for everything, I whispered. She nodded. Me too. We didn't say much else, but in that quiet moment, something inside me softened, not because the pain disappeared, but because I finally stopped carrying it alone. A month had passed since I read Nathan's letter. I hadn't cried, I hadn't called, I hadn't gone looking for him, but I had done something I hadn't done in a long time. I started healing, not in some perfect movie scene kind of way. Healing isn't a glowing moment of clarity. It's quite awkward, uneven. It's standing in your kitchen, making tea, and realizing I didn't think about him today. My mother and I had grown closer, not because we forgot, but because we faced the storm and survived it together. Sometimes we still danced around the deeper conversations, but there was a softness in the way she touched my shoulder, a warmth in the way she looked at me when I wasn't paying attention. It was her silent way of saying I'm still sorry, and mine was in how I stayed longer at her house. Each time I visited, one evening, I stood on the balcony of my apartment with a glass of wine, watching the city flicker with life. Nathan's letter was still in the drawer beside my bed, not because I needed to reread it, but because it reminded me how far I had come from that girl who thought she needed a man to feel complete. I had loved someone who didn't deserve me, and that love had nearly cost me the one relationship that mattered most, my mother. But in losing him, I had gained a deeper version of myself, one that no longer needed closure from the people who ran, one that no longer waited for apologies to move on, one that chose truth over fantasy even when it hurt. I never saw Nathan again. I heard through someone at my mom's office that he moved to another state, that he was starting over. Funny, that was what he always did, but I didn't envy him because this time I wasn't the one who needed to escape. I had already started over without leaving anything behind. If you followed this story all the way to the end, thank you. Thank you for allowing Elena's truth to live for a while in your heart. This wasn't just a story about love or betrayal. It was about family, silence, and the lies we inherit and sometimes repeat. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Was it the betrayal, the mother-daughter bond, or the strength it takes to walk away? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Asterisk, don't forget to subscribe for more raw and real emotional life stories. Like, if this story touched you, share with someone who's ever had to walk away to protect their peace. This story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries.